we had one of the largest content writing businesses in the country.
How do you use SMS? Because that's a largely still underutilized channel by a lot of our brands. They're absolutely killing it because everyone checks their texts.
Right.
And as long as it's a message that's actually helpful to the user, it gets a good response.
Positioning yourself as like an expert in using the tools, right? Today is more important than it's ever been before.
Right. It's never been cheaper or easier to create, I'm going to say, like mediocre, borderline shitty content with AI.
Yeah. A lot of people sell the same thing.
Yeah.
What sets you apart is like, why did you start the company? What is deeply personal about that?
Here we go. Welcome to the Brilliant Commerce Podcast, this time in real life. This is my favorite way to do it. Brilliant Commerce is my opportunity to sit down with some of the brightest minds in commerce and unpack the secrets behind some of the industry's most iconic, and I like to say, soon to be iconic brands. Today, I'm joined by two of those bright minds, Jon Zacharias and Kevin Miller, co-founders of the agency GR0. Guys, thanks for being on the pod.
Yeah, let me just start off by saying,
uh-oh. We practiced this. We practiced this.
Motherfucking Mahoney.
Yes. Only my good friends call me Mahoney.
He always brings the energy.
Always brings
There's
the energy.
never a doubt that you're going to get the energy from him.
And I'm just wondering why you brought us onto the podcast if you're trying to bring on.
But
I know.
Brilliant minds.
I'm wondering the
thank you for
same
having
thing.
us.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm happy to be here for real.
Cool.
Yeah.
Happy to have you guys here.
And this is going to be a cool conversation.
I think so too. So I've known GR0 for a couple of years, but most people who are tuning in maybe don't know of GR0 yet. They probably should. So I'd love for you guys to just take a couple of minutes. Maybe Kevin, you want to start? Tell me the origin story, you know, how you guys met, what prompted you to start GR0, and we'll take it from there.
Yeah. So I moved to Los Angeles in 2017, and Jon and I actually met in the program of Alcoholics Anonymous through sobriety. And we were in a basement together, you know, sharing our deepest thoughts and feelings about both being newly sober. I think we both had like either under a year, right around a year of sobriety at that point. And I was talking about being the director of growth at Open Listings, which was a real estate platform, and how I was struggling with learning SEO because that was my primary responsibility. My previous experience was in paid ads, working at Google and things like that. And he raised his hand and came up to me after the meeting and he was like, listen, I'm your guy. I'm one of the most experienced and best SEO people in the world. I used to do it for Jack Dorsey. I used to do it for all these other, you know, high profile companies. And through that, you know, we found that we had that common ground of sobriety, but also digital marketing love. Like at the end of the day, we're both digital marketing nerds and we use the term nerd as like a term of endearment. And so we met through that, became best friends on the personal side for probably, you know, the first 3 or 4 years. And then, you know, came together because we saw a real opportunity to start an SEO agency in Los Angeles. There's no reputable SEO agencies really in the United States that just focus on that one thing and, you know, try to be the best in the world at that one discipline. So that was our opportunity, and that's what we, you know, kind of got us.
That was the genesis.
That was the genesis. But I'll pass it to Jon to add any color on that, how it started.
Would you tell the same story? Is he telling the truth?
Yeah, no, I tried to get him to partner with me from day one, but he told me I was way too fucking crazy.
Okay.
And so I think he helped me, like Kevin's like helped me a lot in terms of like, I think my emotional sobriety. And I think he helped me like train me to a place where like I was able to start a company together. I don't think he was worried about like the skill set or any of that, but he was worried about more of like the, you know, like how our relationship and how we're going to get along. And we take that really seriously. Like even to this day, like we go to couples therapy together, you know, and we have weekly meetings and we really have been through a lot together, man. You know how it's like, you've been involved in some cool companies. I think those connections that you find to other people are more valuable than any amount of money that I've made so far. In the process and with all the success we've had, it's the thing that makes me wake up in the morning and feel full in the heart. But yeah, I think we saw a huge hole in the market, right? Like these brands were spending so much money on paid media, Theragun, Ritual, you know, these darling D2C e-commerce brands. And so like Theragun spends $5 million in a month on Meta. And that causes 500,000 people to go to Google and search for is Theragun legit? Percussive is, and they weren't even looking at what was happening after that.
Mm-hmm.
They were just paying Google for ads.
Yeah.
But they didn't even like realize that like, wait, no, people actually like read these reviews, right? And so Kevin and I looked at it and we're like, wait, we're the best in the world at SEO. We have a product that no one's ever seen before in the SEO field, right? And no one's doing it in e-commerce. iOS 14, we saw coming around the corner. Everyone's going to run into it. And so we really built like an incredible, we turned SEO. Basically, I think what made us famous was turning SEO into like a performance marketing channel for these brands.
Cool.
And that's what was so cool. We really like built it in a way where it was like, no, you're looking at branded search. We're looking at non-branded search, right? If you're Truff hot sauce, we want to see how many sales we can get from the word hot sauce.
Yeah.
If you're Venus A Fleur, we want to see how many sales we can get from roses that last a year. If you're Theragun, we want to see how much revenue we can turn percussive massage gun into. If you're Fun Boy, we want to see how much money we can turn pool floats into for you a month. And we really looked at it like performance marketing. And then we had a fee and our clients were making big multiples on the fee they were paying us. So they're paying us $5,000, they're making $50,000. If they're paying us $10,000, they're making $100,000, right? And I think that was like the genesis of our success.
An easy investment for them to justify.
And none of these really high profile D2C brands were doing SEO.
Yeah.
Because typically it's something that you outsource for.
Right.
So even like really smart teams were missing that one resource. So it was very easy for us to get our foot in the door. And then we built a relationship and we started to get questions from our clients saying, hey, we really love working with you on the SEO side. Can you also run our Google ads? Can you also do our TikTok shop?
This was going to be my question. You guys met, you hear the story. Here's this like smart guy that I'm relating to looking for SEO. And like, I've sort of cracked the code on SEO. And now I'm hearing you talk about this, you at Grow, pun intended, growing into being more of a full stack agency. Like, when did you see the opportunity? When did you think that you two and your team had earned the right to sort of say, hey, we can do more of your business?
And that's a good question. I'll get into that in a second, but I want to finish off with the level of success that this first product had. I mean, it was the first 2 years were insane.
Yeah, insane.
We went from zero to $20 million in revenue a year.
And 50 employees within 1 year.
Within 1 year. And so neither one of us had ever run a business of that size.
Mm-hmm.
So the journey's been especially fun. It's not like scaling a software company. Much different, right?
Yeah.
Like a software, our product, we actually look at it as like our people are our product.
Yeah.
That's how seriously
the product is communication. Literally the strategy that you're providing, the work you're doing versus a software.
Yeah.
That's what sets you apart.
So then in around somewhere around what happened was, and I forget what it was, there was some sort of mild financial crisis in 22 or something.
Yeah, end of 22.
Yeah, end of 22. What was it? It wasn't.
I mean, some people would not describe it as mild, but yes, there was a correction.
There was a correction.
Okay. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah. No. But things started to get harder. It was more expensive to acquire customers.
Yeah.
Like that
boom was over.
Yeah, the explosive growth that you guys saw that was partly fueled by your unique approach to the market and your tech was like right place, right time. But then suddenly everything got harder. It became more competitive.
What happened was, I remember this like it was yesterday because it was the first time we got an email from someone saying, we're going to discontinue your services because we're going out of business.
Yeah.
And I think what happened was a lot of D2C companies raised money that probably shouldn't have raised money or didn't have the fundamentals that would warrant actually making an investment.
Yeah.
And when iOS 14 happened and things got harder in that privacy landscape, it sort of weeded out the companies that didn't have a real product market fit.
Yep.
Yeah. Anyways, things got hard, right? And the first thing that these brands started cutting off was SEO.
Yeah.
Right. So I talked to Kevin, I'm like, how do we become like the lifeblood of these companies? How do we become like the phone service?
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? It's like everyone, like you talk to like a guy who's low on cash, like he'll figure out how to fucking pay his phone bill.
Yeah.
Like no matter what.
That's
like,
the last thing that goes.
Last thing that goes is the phone bill and the electricity bill. Right. And we really looked at the ecosystem and we're like, okay, well, there's paid social and there's creative and there's Google ads. And we kind of built out our entire roadmap based on like what was the most integral part of this to the business. And now we had money and we had resources and we were a little bit bigger. And we said like, I'm not going to spend, our rule is that we only wanted people that had spent at least 10,000 hours mastering a subject to be in charge of a department at Grow. That's like our rule at the company, because I probably spent 50,000 hours on SEO. He spent more than 10,000 hours on Google AdWords. Like, you know what I mean? So like we had that. So we started making acquisitions. And the first acquisition we made was a Google Ads agency. It made the most sense. We had an SEO agency, right? Like it directly complemented it. So we bought a Google Ads agency. Then we bought an email agency. We thought retention was a great channel. No matter what happens, it's like someone pays us $7K a month. It's like, and we can figure out how to get them a big uptick in their business.
Yeah.
Like ROI is really easy to prove on email, especially if you're good at it and you have custom designers and you have good copywriters and stuff like that. Like you can really make a difference on brands with email. So then we bought an email agency, and then we built paid social and creative in-house. We kind of made like an acqui-hire. We had two guys that like, it wasn't like a 4 million acquisition, but they kind of had their own little thing and we convinced them to come run our department.
Join forces.
Join forces with us and they did a great job. Shout out to Alan and Tim and Grandma. and then we recently bought an Amazon agency and that is the most exciting acquisition that we've made because it just provides a whole different level of service from our company. And we're really seeing it make a big difference in how happy our clients are. Look, you're a business owner, you're starting a company, right? And people don't really think about it like this, but dude, you're doing a million things, right? Like you're like doing HR, finance, legal, like you don't want to have to go vet hundreds of different agencies, figure out how to use them all, figure out who's going to manage it. Just so we want it to be like the one-stop shop. Like, you know, we trust these guys and we know that they're fucking good and they care and they're passionate about what they do.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the passion is clear. I don't think anyone is going to argue that fact. And no, I say that with all the respect in the world. And I watched the sort of the transition too. And one of the things that always stuck out to me about Grow, when you went beyond SEO and you started to lean into creative, is your creative really hits. And I think like you identified that as something that really mattered. And now you're talking about some of these other acquisitions. One of the things that I'll give you guys credit for is being one step ahead. And so you've talked about iOS 14, you've talked about some of these things. I'm happy you brought up email. I just got back from Shop Talk in March. And one of the things that a lot of brands were talking about is organic has always been a really important channel, whether it's people who are landing on my site through search or the customers I'm able to bring back to my site through email. Like those are channels that are a lot of times the lifeblood of a brand that you're going to supplement with paid. I think about what is happening now with AI, and not talking about content generation. I'm talking about AI that Apple is deploying. Like we talk an awful lot about iOS 14, but now there's AI that is going to do an awful lot of filtering for us, that is going to decide what is relevant. And you guys have worked so hard on SEO to create content that is relevant, copy and creative that cuts through. If you're advising your brands now and you're trying to be this agency that stays one step ahead, how are you advising them or what are you experimenting with to make sure that those investments that you're making in email, they somehow make it into your customer's inbox or your customer's inbox? Because I can tell you, brands are terrified that this organic channel is going to disappear. And in some cases, that's 50% of their business that is at risk right now.
How are you defining organic?
I'm defining organic as you've already acquired the customer. You send an email, you send them an email and they're coming back.
So we call that retention.
Yeah, life cycle marketing, retention. Yeah.
It's great to get the nomenclature right.
Well, it's not paid.
Anything that's not paid.
Okay.
Yeah. It's not like the sexiest channel.
Yeah.
So people often forget about it. But who wants to pay to acquire the customer a second and third time when you could have it for free?
Right.
So what that comes down to is like really smart segmentation.
Okay.
On the email side, understanding what email and what message someone should get at what time.
Yeah.
Making sure that your messaging is reflective of that. But also like, how do you use SMS? Because that's a largely still underutilized channel by a lot of our brands. The ones that are like really leaning into it, they're absolutely killing it because everyone checks their texts.
Right.
And as long as it's a message that's actually helpful to the user, a discount or like a new feature or new product that they're launching, it gets a good response.
Yeah, I think this is where you're going to really see AI be a big driver going forward. I agree with what Kevin's saying. It's the personalization of the message that people are receiving, right? And that's how you really keep those inbox because they're looking at the deliverability and open rates on those emails a lot. And so the more customized and personalized it is, the better it's going to be. If I'm on Chrome Hearts and I'm looking at a certain ring, right, and I want to buy it, and then they send me an email about it, I'm going to be way more interested. And then if they just send me like, here's our sale for the fall.
Yeah, exactly.
Do you know what I mean? And so I think it's just getting really smart and hacky with it. But I was saying this the other day, and I'll give a shout out to one of my buddies and a close friend and client too. Like like the way like you really build community through email.
Yeah.
Right. Like that's the guys who are the masters at it.
Yeah.
Right. And like I've got a buddy, Jack, at Everyday Dose, and like I signed up for his product. It's one of the most amazing products I've ever had. It's mushroom coffee, adaptogens. Like it fixed my stomach. It's just unbelievable, right? And the brand's done so well as a result of how this amazing product that he's created. But he's just also done such an amazing job with making you feel like you're a part of a journey, right?
Yeah.
You're a part of a community,
Yep.
right? And like, I'm excited to read his emails. It's updates on his journey and his health, wellness, and how the mushroom coffee is affecting him and how it's affecting other people in that community.
Yeah.
And it's just really cool the way that they've done it.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, I use the term iconic to kick us off here. So this notion of iconic brands, for me, I think sort of brands, they get put into that echelon because they've developed community or they've developed an amazing story, a great connection with their customer.
And a great product. And
a great product.
Yeah.
So I think if I think about the heyday of performance marketing, the product didn't matter very much. It was really about like, let's just acquire the customer. There's this arbitrage opportunity that's happening and the product kind of sucks.
Well, I think that's what the big difference in iOS 14 was.
Yeah.
If you had to tell me right now what it was, like we, had one client that was selling these magnetic eyelashes.
Yeah.
And they were able to acquire new customers at a certain amount and they could scale the business to $50-60 million a year.
Yeah.
We had another client that was selling lashes that people said worked a lot better. And, then iOS 14 hits and it's like, your product better fucking work.
Yeah.
Because if it doesn't, right, the cost of acquiring new customers just skyrocketed.
Too expensive. Can't
So you have to have products that work. So I think that's the big thing that iOS 14 did. Is there was a lot of people that I knew that were getting rich off of selling shit that didn't work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Those aren't going to be iconic brands.
It was a healthy correction because the products that didn't need to exist ceased to exist.
So I want to come back to this idea of community and content because you two run an agency that you're largely going to be measured on the results, like how much you can help these brands to grow. And I really believe in striking the right balance between performance marketing and brand marketing. You can't become an iconic brand. You can't generate that excitement to read that email unless you're investing in brand marketing. And I'd just be curious, you've obviously earned the trust of some amazing brands. Like how hard are those conversations for you to have to sort of advocate for some amount of spend to go against brand, which is harder to attribute ROI to? You can't measure that as much versus all out performance.
It's a good question. I'll go in first and Kevin come in second. But it's interesting because you come from that world.
Yeah.
Right. So we come from two different, we don't advocate for it at all.
Huh.
Our whole concept is actually that let's make iconic ads, right? That are fucking like our bar for a good ad is like something that it's so powerful and outrageous that it's the last thing that someone thinks about before they go to bed at night. Like that's the bar, right? So it's like things that are really like, and by the way, like attention is the currency that people care about now on social, and the bar to getting people's attention with now TikTok and how it went from like we had 3 seconds to get your attention to now you have like less than one to get someone's attention, right? So that's the bar on what it takes to get someone's attention. But we think you build like look at Liquid Death.
Yeah.
Right. Like they built an icon. I know they spend money on brand awareness now, but they kind of did. They really threaded the needle the right way in terms of like performance and brand dollars together because their ads were just so iconic, right? That they were doing performance ads that were building a brand.
Yeah. I mean, I think if you can nail that, like then you're really nailing it. But I would also argue there's traditional brand building in that. You're not just shitting out creative to see what works. You're setting this bar, which is like, yeah, we want it to work, but we want it to be fucking good. And for people to think it's memorable. I really love that framing. It's the last thing you're thinking about.
Well, so that brings me to one more question, which is measurement.
Yeah.
But it all falls into the funnel, right? And so that's where I think the brands have the biggest problem is like there's this YouTube and there's connected TV and it's right. And it's like what you're talking about, like brands are investing, like we have a brand right now that's investing a lot of money in that, a baby formula brand, right? Like they're realizing that to grow, they need that, right? So they've hit a wall. Right. But I think what's interesting about it is that this is where a core becomes interesting because it's hard for them to measure and understand it.
Yeah.
Right. And so that's the biggest thing is that
measure, understand, predict. I mean, I think these are all things that we need to get better at. And it's harder and harder to sort of say in a pixel perfect way, I know exactly where that dollar went and it landed this customer for me, as opposed to we're blending these things together and we feel like the money that we're spending is getting us the return we want. You told me this story once before where someone was looking at, they had a negative ROAS on, I think it was TikTok, but that their in-store sales were like through the roof. They're like, cool, we're going to keep losing money here because we know it's driving sales in store.
So Amazon, they saw what TikTok was doing for Amazon and retail.
Right, that's what it was.
And they were just calculating it more advanced than other companies were at the time. And it allowed them to grow like crazy because they were just going, wait, we can lose money on TikTok because in retail we're going, you know? So.
Yeah. Back to your previous question though about the brand stuff. The number one thing that I advocate for that I think is the biggest differentiator for any brand, no matter what, you know, D2C, B2B, whatever, is the founder story. Mm-hmm. Like a lot of people sell the same thing.
Yep.
There's 10, you know, or 1,000 companies that sell greens in powder or in liquid form. What sets you apart is like, why did you start the company? What is deeply personal about that? So, you know, there was one that was on Shark Tank that we're friends with called Bite. It's a toothpaste company.
Yeah.
And
I was a customer for a while.
Founder of that is this woman named Lindsay, who's fascinating and has an amazing story. But she documented her whole journey of why she started the company and how she did it in her kitchen. Then she took video and photos and put that on the website and educated everyone about that. So they were bought into her. And that's why they ended up buying the product. We have the baby formula company that he talked about. 3 married women that have kids. So they have a deeply personal experience with, you know, not being able
the why.
to
He's
do
talking
that.
about the why, not the what.
It's the why.
It's the why. It's the why is what we see move the needle.
It goes a long way. And I think people still underinvest in it.
Yeah.
But it makes sense to continue to refresh that, add to your story, explain to your customers why you're still at it.
Yeah.
And why
it can't just be an
inspired.
academic exercise. Like I see you too. I see your eyes light up when you talk about brands and your customers. Like you have to be brand people, I think, at the end of the day, to be able to tell those stories and create those iconic ads. Like that's what really matters.
Yeah.
That's what's going to help you see around the corner. And I'm curious, I hate pivoting the conversation to AI, but I'm going to do it anyhow. It's never been cheaper or easier to create, I'm going to say like mediocre, borderline shitty content with AI.
Yeah.
How do you think that that's going to change the landscape that you're operating in? And do you see it as an existential threat or an opportunity for people who are, you have brand in your DNA and you have creative in your DNA? Do you see it as an opportunity to stand out?
Yeah, I was just telling this to John, from our perspective as an agency, I don't think that AI is an agency killer. I think it's a margin enhancer.
Okay.
And I think it's a creativity enhancer, productivity enhancer. So that's how we think about it. I've been blown away by it because the sheer volume of creative output that you can do and tests that you can do, you know, makes you 100 times more productive and faster at like validating a hypothesis that you're trying to get across to your customer. And the tools get better by the week.
Right.
So just last week, the latest update for ChatGPT, the newest model, now builds actually beautiful and usable static images.
Yeah.
Rather than having to do it more of a manual way. So it's just really mind-blowing in terms of what it can do and how deeply impactful it is for us as an agency.
Yeah, and I have 2 answers to that. So one is and he's exactly right. One is I don't ever look at anything as an existential threat, no matter what. Like I just look at it as an opportunity, always, right? It's like
very unsurprised by that answer.
Yeah, so no, and it's especially important with AI. It's like we had one of the largest content writing businesses in the country. Like we were writing the blogs, we were producing 5 million words of content manually for 500 of the biggest blogs
per month
in the world, right? And then this thing called ChatGPT came out.
Right.
And ChatGPT can write content and it can do it better than a human being, right? And so you would sit there and you'd look at that and you'd go, oh my God, how did that not wipe you guys out of business, right? And the answer is that I do believe that you're always going to need like positioning yourself as like an expert in using the tools, right? Today is more important than it's ever been before.
Right.
And we saw that on a huge case study with what it was. It did not take away from our business. We had to pivot our business. We had to become the best in the world at using ChatGPT. We had to learn all the tricks of it, all the plugins that you can use, all the prompts that you have to use to create incredible content that still gets ranked by Google and doesn't get caught up for plagiarism and all that stuff, right? And then you can sell it for even more.
Right.
Than you could sell if a person was writing it. So that was so cool. And like we even built examples where we're like telling like Google in like the actual like terms and conditions sections of these websites, like we do use AI and here's how we use it.
Yeah.
We use it responsibly. We fact check everything. We make sure that any legal claims or health claims are fact checked.
Yeah. So as a human editor, things
and
like
our stuff started ranking higher than it ever had before.
Right.
You know what I mean? But like we figured that all out. We figured out like, because a lot of companies were saying like, well, we'll use AI, but we're not going to tell Google.
Yeah.
We were like, no, we're going to do the exact opposite. We're going to use AI. We're going to tell Google we're using AI. And then we're going to tell Google we're using AI responsibly.
Right.
And here's how we're doing it. And then then we're able to produce way more content. And we built a team of fact checkers in every category: finance fact checkers, legal fact checkers. And that's like Google EAT compliant thing where it's like expertise, authorities, and trust. They want to know that real experts are actually like fact checking these articles.
Sure.
That's really like their line of defense against AI. Right. Is EAT. And then all of a sudden our content business just kept flying, even better, but with a third of the people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it's almost like, I think that's it's great for you, for people who are listening to this, get a little bit of like a look behind the curtain, like how you are leveraging it, not to cut out humans, but instead to make those humans more efficient. And I think that's really interesting, the way that you found relevancy by disclosing ultimately how you're using AI. And as I think about going back, I guess, to the SEO business, like you had to figure out how to make content that was relevant. When I'm thinking about content creation today, you have another audience. You have these agents, not just the search engine indexes that are crawling the site, but you have agents, and there's all of this talk about these agentic workflows that are going to do all the shopping for us. And I have plenty of thoughts on that. I don't think shopping that as we know it is gone. Far from it. I love to shop. I think you two are consumers as well. But we are going to have more and more agents shopping. We're going to have more and more agents pulling that content into responses that they're going to pull forward for their customers. So have you thought about that in terms of the content generation strategy? And I mean, imagine your teams are likely experimenting with it, given you're always ahead of the curve.
Yeah, I mean, that's actually what I look for in employees now, is like, how creative will they get to solve a certain problem, specifically when they're using AI? Like last night or 2 nights ago, I built a model that would give me the probability of an NBA game going over or under the score, the line that Vegas gave. And then I was able to like continue to like tweak that and modify that for like the output that I wanted. Now it sends me a daily email with the picks based on all the probabilities of historical scores.
Dude, you got to open source that.
And things that, yeah, totally.
Let's give it away. Put it in the links.
I think, like I said, every week it gets like 5% better.
Yeah.
5% more useful. And, we're just constantly, I think people are willing to pay for what he said, which is like being really good at using the tool and figuring out how can it help them in every single aspect of their business.
Yeah. You got to remember, we work with startups, right? Like I'm saying, they want to do less. They need reliable people that they can trust to do more. So I'm not worried about that at all. But with the AI agents, look, I need to stay a few steps ahead. And I think that we always have and always will. That's just the way my brain works. But at the same time, it's like, I don't make drastic changes. The company's too big and things are without understanding really where the thing is going.
Sure.
Yeah. So, and the truth of the matter is that like, I don't think people underestimate, like, the technology might be there, but consumer behavior is very, very hard to change.
Yeah.
People wake up in the morning and they start their day by looking at Instagram. And then they go online and they look at a pair of shoes, and then they go to lunch. And then so like, until I actually see like, and understand my friends being like, oh, this morning, my AI agent like went on and like bought me a bunch of stuff on, and they picked the right shoes for me on this site. And it's like, I'm not going to worry about that because that's that. But also I think that, like what Kevin's saying is that like these AI tools, like the thing that's so amazing about them is that they haven't even started to figure out like really how they're going to monetize it.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, I know ChatGPT charges a monthly subscription, so that keeps them afloat for now, but they haven't like done that major like ad unlock yet. And you saw like Zuckerberg and Meta and that whole thing where like he held everybody off for so many years, and everyone's like, dude, this thing has to start making money or we're out. And no. And then he finally had the perfect ad product and he knew it worked, and he released it and it created e-commerce basically, right? As you know it today. And all the cool brands we work with are basically created from Meta ads. Right.
Yeah.
But like, I just can't wait to see the products. And there's a great quote that Altman says where he says, they ask him like how he's going to monetize it. And he says, I don't know. When the thing gets smart enough, I'm going to ask it to tell me.
Yeah, totally. I saw something that I thought was fascinating yesterday because my sister is a recruiter, and there's this AI agent called Manus.ai. and it will look at 100 resumes if you're a recruiter, and it will compare what the resumes say with the JD that you're searching for. It'll distill it down to the top 10 applicants without you with your computer closed, and it will give you detailed notes on the pros and cons of every single applicant. So like that whole first step of the process, or like 50% of the process is already done, and then you can compare the AI notes with your own human notes.
Yeah.
And then, it just puts you in a better position to make the right decision.
Yeah. I mean, gosh, guys, there's a ton of like nuggets in what you both just said there. Jon, I just want to come back and acknowledge like the point you made about the company's too big to be affected by whiplash changes. Like we got to go all in on this certain thing. Like consumer behavior takes a long time to change, and we are going to see some of it. Agentic shopping is going to happen. I think it's most likely to happen on toilet paper and not on the shoes. Like shoes are something that are very personal to you. Anything that you put on or in your body, I don't think agents are going to buy for you. There's something really magic about that shopping experience. And I also think you're right about just sort of the monetization of some of these things. Like I've heard this, well, if we can't buy on Google anymore, like, well, what are we actually doing? Like they're going to figure out a way to monetize these things. And I think agencies like Grow are going to figure out a way to make your customers really stand out there. It sounds like you two have done an awful lot of this growth hacking right now, but you've also grown a really nice team and a really nice business. And so maybe shifting gears in the last couple of minutes we have here to team building and company building, because I've been really inspired by watching you two build a company. How do you recruit that talent? Probably not with AI. And how do you encourage the people that you have now working at Grow to be the ones that are looking around that next corner, so that it can't be you two all the time?
Yeah.
So how do you recruit and nurture and bring along that next generation of talent?
Honestly, we try to lead by example, and we take that really seriously. So for example, like that probability thing that I put together for the NBA scores, like I come in and tell people how I'm using that at work, and ask them what's something in your personal life that you can use the GPT for example. But honestly, we look for good people who were raised right, have good character, have a great attitude. That's the stuff that you can't teach or train. If they have that down, then we can train them on how to do the marketing capabilities that we have that are always changing. But I think it just comes down to, for me, like finding someone who's a good person, that is inspired, that's entrepreneurial, that wants to do something bigger, and like is there for their long-term greedy. They're there to make an impact. They don't need to be micromanaged, because that's just like who they are.
Right.
We really believe in the analogy of being a sports team, a high-powered sports team. And we try to give our employees the resources, just like the Lakers have the best facilities. We try to do the same thing with our employees.
Cool.
Yeah, we pick people for their hearts and not their brains, because you can train the brain and you can't train the heart. You know what I mean? And ultimately, some guy that's a level 3 ad campaign manager was a barista at Starbucks 3 months ago.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so we want people that like really are hungry and smart. That's what we're looking for, and have good attitudes. Like I'll take a guy with a good attitude who is a 7 smart and a 10 hungry over a guy who's a 15 smart with a terrible attitude.
Right.
Right. And I think there's a great Steve Jobs quote that he says, and Kevin and I always play this for each other. Right. And it's like, once you start to build a team of A players, right, it starts to police itself, because A players don't want to play with B players. Do you know what I'm saying? So I think the hardest thing for us was actually what you're talking about, was building the right team. Like we grew really fast, right? And we weren't ready for it. We just built a product that was really powerful, and a lot of brands wanted to work with us, right? And we didn't understand the importance of having that second and third layer of management within the company. And we paid for it a lot. Like those, I think that's where we learned most of our lessons, was how important those second, third, fourth players are. Very similar to how Michael Jordan learned, that he can score 70 points a game, but he ain't going to win a championship until not only does he have the right pieces, but he throws them the ball at the end of the game to score the winning basket, right? Like that's the lesson that he had to learn. And so I think that's kind of like where we're at today is that we're really understanding that, like, delegation is everything. We need to have the right people in place. And I just want to give a shout out. Like, there's some amazing stories with my company. What makes me a billionaire today are some of these stories of seeing these guys come in, these girls come in, and then they learn and they become a part of this amazing thing that we've built. and they care about it. And then they get equity in the company. And then I get to see them like, start a family and buy a home and buy the car of their dreams. And like, that's what makes us a billionaire today. That's the way we look at it. But that's the kind of atmosphere and culture that we've really carefully cultivated. And I think that is what really separates us from other agencies.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, it's a scary thing. I've been through agency for 20 years. And I remember it's like this addictive feeling of being the one that your customer can count on and you're the one that is solving those problems. And I struggled with giving that away. Mm-hmm. And then when I went through some of the same struggles and like learned those lessons the hard way, but then when I finally did it, it was all of those things. It's just really, really powerful to see people also get addicted to that and really sort of grow in their own right. And that's when you really feel like you've got something. And it's amazing to watch them go on and start a family and be really, really successful. I think that's great. And that's a really good tip, I would say. If you're shopping for an agency, if I'm a brand right now, like content obviously matters, but the people who are behind the storytelling,
way more.
They've got to buy into it. They want to be a part of my team. So that excitement has to come through. And clearly they get it from you too. But if I'm on a call with anyone else on your team, I feel that as well.
Yeah. And we have a great therapist. Like I was mentioning earlier, him and I see a couples therapist together. And like he said something to me that really stuck to me one time. And he was like, you need to literally envision yourself passing the ball to these people.
Yeah.
So it's like, you're like, like I'm about to score a basket. Boom, Michael, take the ball. Right. And it's like, you start to like think about things differently, you know? And so I think like, trying to like gamify it in that way where it's like, wait, I can just easily put this in, but I'm going to throw the ball to this guy and I'm actually going to envision it like it's the Lakers showtime in the 80s and 70s, right?
Yeah.
That's what makes it so magical. And that's the way we run our company.
I mean, I think you guys are lucky to have found each other. As I look back on my career, I've been very fortunate to have had incredible business partners. Like it's hard. Business is hard enough. And to do it by yourself is really a challenge. So it's really cool to see what you guys are doing and what you're going to continue to do. I feel like super fortunate that you're part of the Cord journey too. I have to wrap us up here in a couple of minutes. And I'm just curious, I'm sure you saw what we're now referring to as the Toby memo internally, that at Shopify, he's now mandating his team, like no more hires and you need to use AI. So maybe just like one parting thought as to thinking about how you guys are building teams and giving your teams the tools they need to be successful. We've talked about how AI has already impacted your business, but behind the scenes internally, how do you react to that? Is that something that you're going to do in a similar fashion to grow, or how are you encouraging the team to lean into this new productivity frontier, let's call it?
I think it actually is really, first of all, I love the speech that he gave. I love the message. I think there's two ways to view it. If you're an employee that doesn't really want to work that hard, and isn't that self-motivated, you see it as like, this guy just wants to make more money for himself. And like, it's going to make my life harder. I think what he means is I want to challenge like all the Shopify employees to use the latest cutting edge technology to make their lives more efficient. And that's what's going to build like the next generation of multi-billion-dollar companies that actually have staying power.
Right.
He wants to see them exhaust that. And when they do that, then and they still need another body.
Then they built a business case for why
they can hire body. Yeah. But he just doesn't see a world where you can scale to where, he believes they can scale just by adding more people.
Yeah. Not going to do it the same way.
Not going to do it the same way. That's how I interpret
it. That's a bigger company. It's a tech company. I think for us, we have to lead by example with this.
Yeah.
Like Kevin has been doing a great job of like actually like using the tools, right? And showing people what he can do with them. And how much easier it's making his life.
Yeah. I've been acting as a creative producer. And then I go to my creative producers who know I don't have a creative background. And I tell them, I made this for one of our clients. Is this high quality enough that you would deliver to the client? Then they go home at night thinking like, okay, the CEO is doing what I should, I want to come back with ideas for him.
Yeah.
And it works. I think that's how you inspire people.
Yeah. You're being inspirational. You're not being an asshole about it.
I'm not telling anyone, we never ask anyone to do anything at Grow that we wouldn't do.
Right.
I will take out the trash. I will clean up the kitchen. I expect my employees to do the same thing.
And no one does their best work if they feel like they're nervous. I think it's like striking that right balance to make sure that they feel inspired.
Yeah. And when you're running an agency, you're always building the plane as you're flying it.
Right.
So it's like it's the same at the same time. It's like these guys have to deliver high quality content for the best brands in the world right now.
Yeah.
So they can't just go like, oh, I'm going to test this tool and maybe maybe one of these amazing brands we work with will figure out that it's AI or they won't, and we'll find out the hard. It's like, no, you got to be like super careful with this stuff as it's going.
Yeah, I think that's probably a great place to wrap us up. Like I rail against this concept that it's somehow a flaw or a smell to be building the plane while you're flying it. I think as fast as the industry is moving and evolving, if you're running a business and you don't feel that way, then I don't think you're pushing hard enough. And I think like whether you're an agency or whether you're a software company, if you think you've got it all figured out, you probably don't. And I watched the evolution that has happened with what you two are building within the four walls or many walls of Grow. And I think it's really inspirational. So thanks for coming on the pod. Thanks for bringing it, Jon,
Thanks
as
for having
advertised. Kevin, I think you are a real strong second to the energy over here. So.
No, but congratulations to you, man. I really am inspired by you. And I think you've, have a really cool 12 months in front of you right now.
Thanks.
And we're grateful to be a part of the journey. And thank you for including us.
Yeah, man, we're fired up. Yeah, cool. Thank you.